Hi guys, and welcome back to Pass and Move. For today's episode, we actually have a Champions League game for you here today and not a Premier League game. So we're going to be playing against Viktoria. I felt like it might be a bit of an important game to show, not because of who we're playing. We did an episode already on Viktoria, but it's just about what it could potentially mean for our Champions League campaign. So in terms of what happened since the last episode, we did show you that match against Bayern and Manchester City, and thankfully that were two nice little wins. But since then, a bit of a mixed run of form, to be honest. But we did manage to beat Tottenham on penalties in the Carabao Cup fourth round, so we're advancing to the quarterfinals now against Wolves. Yeah, we didn't play too well until Jesse Lingard grabbed the goal pretty much out of nowhere. And then we had to do penalties. Thankfully, there was no extra time or any of that business, so that saved us some trouble. But anyways, my players couldn't recover and go on to win against Crystal Palace either. Lingard again on the score sheet, but Jeffrey Schlupp gave them the opener of the game in the 6th minute. Unfortunately, Lingard and the rest of his team really couldn't press on and grab a second, and we had to settle for a point away from home. I mean, they were relegation candidates fighting for their lives, but again, it's still November, kind of too early to be dropping points against relegation candidates, and to be honest, it's not even acceptable in the first place. But anyways, we managed to go with back-to-back 3-0 results against Bayern and Bournemouth. Obviously, the more impressive one is Bayern. We managed to beat them 3-0 at home, but playing them away this time, I didn't expect a similar result, especially because we only beat them 3-0. Well, I thought we only beat them 3-0 at home because they got a man sent off this time around. No one was sent off, and we still managed to beat them. Of course, within the last half an hour of the game, basically, with Ashley on getting the score sheet, Rashford and Bailly also all grabbing a goal as well. Against Bournemouth at home, it is expected to win and win comfortably. We did so with Lukaku and Rashford once more, who's sort of developing relatively well now, and hopefully keeps that up. Against Leicester, though, more drop points, unfortunately, and Divock Origi grabbing the equaliser in the 84th minute. My players couldn't press on after scoring the first goal. I guess they kind of tried to settle on the one goal and thought they could cruise by. It wasn't enough. I tried to warn them at half time, but they still couldn't press on and do anything better. So we will be playing against Viktoria now, and the reason to show you just the group stage, the table. Valencia have already qualified, they don't have too much to play for, so beating Viktoria here today could set a nice little it could set things up basically quite well for us. The truth is, or the likelihood is, that we're going to be probably showing you the game against Valencia as well later on in the last game. But I'm hoping Valencia, even though they don't have anything to play for, they'll still want to try and beat Bayern again, so that way I think we would officially be qualified. And then we won't have to show you the game against Valencia, but I'm expecting, because they don't have anything to play for, Bayern would win. And then just to give you an idea of how the Premier League table looks like, we are in 2nd place behind Tottenham. So Tottenham are the only team who, well, not the only team actually, let's give you a bit of more detail. So they haven't drawn. Yeah, I guess they are the only team. We lost once less than them, but unfortunately 2 draws is in a way more dangerous than a loss, because with top teams you kind of lose fairly rarely, but if you keep picking up the draws, then it can be even more trouble, so we have to try and avoid those. But anyway, still 1 point away from top. The aim from the board was Champions League football, and I think we're relatively safe from that position. 7 points, we'd have to drop 7 points for us to drop out of the Champions League zone, so I think so far on target, but I'm obviously aiming for the title. I will need to do better, and hopefully we can. But yeah, like I mentioned, so if you have a quick look at the schedule, you'll see that we're playing Valencia I thought it would be a nice thing to do for the next episode, show you Valencia and Liverpool back-to-back. Those should be 2 good games. We've got Tottenham down the line, which could potentially be, a bit of a title decider, but Liverpool's always such a huge game. And of course, depending on the result today, we might not have to show you Valencia, and then maybe I'll be tempted to not show you Liverpool and show you Tottenham instead. But it does depend on the results we pick up here, and of course what Tottenham pick up on the way as well, because maybe by the time we reach here, Tottenham are no longer really head-to-head sort of thing, and maybe we can show you what's obviously always a huge game for Manchester United. But anyways, I think that's enough talking for now. Let's get into today's game. We're getting a couple of players back now, but also still picking up injuries. I'm really confused. Pogba now out for 6 days to 2 weeks, but we've got a bunch of players back now. Only Luke Shaw still injured from the while back, which is 11 days and 5 weeks now in terms of his recovery. But we've got Rashford, Jones, we've got Sanchez was back. He got picked up a bit of an injury. Valencia back as well. Alexandro, he's a little bit tired for today's game, but unfortunately, you know, Shaw's technically his backup, so we can't give him a rest, and we'll try and rest him between today's game and the next game. So yeah, I think we can go ahead and kick off, and hopefully we can pick up another 3 points. Remember, Viktoria did beat us 2 episodes ago, I believe, and this is an opportunity for revenge. I didn't think I'd be saying that about a team like Viktoria, but yeah, need to pick up all 3 points. More desperate at home, can't afford to lose, can't afford to draw in truth if we want to qualify, and this is a perfect opportunity to do so. Okay, teams such as ours should be winning this match without a problem at all. I think that's the one. It didn't seem like we were too much of favourites, but what else can it be? And then we obviously want to show replays, goals, please. We can do extended highlights since we're just showing one game today. And there you go. I think we're ready to go. Actually, I've actually forgotten to make one change. So Fellaini's come in for Pogba. Not the best option, of course, but well, not the best option, but I mean more like not the best backup. But yeah, we just have to deal with it. He's going to play as our box midfield. Move Fred to the left, and we'll be expecting Fellaini to do the dirty work instead of Fred. And I think that would be better off for that kind of partnership. I think everything else was pretty much set up well, so be quite worrying to play. Fellaini is an advanced playmaker. I don't think he'll be able to do any of the sort that we need from him. But anyways, Lingard dropping deep, almost won the ball well, and that's pretty much it for that highlight. So, order of the day. Okay. Well, at the moment it's to not concede, but overall we do just want to get the 3 points. Doesn't matter how we get them as long as we do get them. Kind of a free shot for Viktoria there, but De Gea's dealt with it well, and maybe we can try and hit them back. But yeah, I don't really care about the performance. We can scrape by on a 1-0 result. We can beat them 5-4. I don't really care. All that really matters is the 3 points. Young, received the ball well. He just has to beat his man and deliver the cross. Gone to the byline. Martial's there, and he finishes, and to be honest, you wouldn't expect him to finish that chance. This was a good cross, but he was just surrounded by Viktoria players, and we've already gotten our lead 4 minutes into the match, and I couldn't have asked for more from our players. We're getting a nice little 3D view of this, and look at Young. Doesn't necessarily have, you know, I mean, he should be beating his man, but his man just lets him cross in, and Martial rises the highest and gets his header away. Why not? That's more of a header or a finish that you would expect from Lukaku, who is a target man, but Martial's showing him how it's done, and repaying the faith, I suppose. Bailly wins the header well. Fred up to Lingard, who finds Lukaku, and now he just has to be a bit smart with it. Fred back again to Young, proved to be dangerous last time, can be dangerous again. Good ball into the box. Martial again. Nope. Forces Sandro. Would he take the shot on? Yes, he will, and he'll score, of course. Second goal of the season. This is why we need Sandro back, because he's just levels above Shaw, and I'm so glad he's back, because as good as, you know, Young is two-footed, but whenever he plays on the left, he'll cut in on his right kind of naturally, whereas Sandro will just always stick to that left well. I mean, that's a hell of a shot. So 2-0, looks like we should be cruising through this game, and Viktoria should be, or could be, in for a long night here. Matic. Back to Young, and again, can he do the business? Fellaini, Young, looked a bit offside, but apparently not. Back to Fellaini, okay. Lingard, gets the shot away, and it's a corner. Blocked well, I suppose, but maybe we can still punish them. Not sure why David De Gea ran all the way up here. What are you doing? Guess because he's a sweeper keeper, but still. Martial, headed clear. Lingard, is he going to go back to Young? Yes, he will. Better delivery this time, Young. Okay, not sure what you're doing, but just deliver the ball. That's probably his worst cross of the game so far, but Bailly keeps it alive through Martial. Fred, can he finish? He did this before. Blocked again there. I think Viktoria are just hanging on for their lives at this point in time. Just really, I'm just glad we're getting revenge on them, to be honest, because I wasn't pleased at all with how we lost. It really, there you go, Bailly. It really set us up poorly for the rest of the Champions League campaign. We lost against Valencia after that as well. Seemingly couldn't perform in Europe. But since then we've pressed on with back-to-back wins against Bayern, and now we're beating Viktoria, and I think we've proven that we deserve to get out of the group stages. Question is how far we can get into the competition. I think it's round of 16 next, if I'm not mistaken, but the board do expect quarterfinals, which I think is kind of optimistic with the squad I've got. But yeah, I think some of our players are developing well. Some things are going to plan. Rashford's improved well. Nicky Butt seems to think he's the leading player for most Premier League sides, which is perfect, but unfortunately for him, there he goes, it's 25 minutes and we've got 4, maybe that's offside. Where's the linesman? Has he run back? Yeah, I think he ran back, so he's not offside, that's 4. Yeah, Nicky Butt seems to think Nicky Butt says, one of our staff members, he's not the best judgment. He's good enough to predict right, I suppose. And he seems to think Rashford's the leading Premier League striker, but unfortunately for him, Sanchez and Lukaku are our first choice strikers, and there's nowhere really on the pitch that we can squeeze Rashford into, especially based on our current formation. But another player that developed well is actually Lindelof. If I can pause this game at the moment, because we're kind of just beating him senselessly. Lindelof he's gone back down to a good player. So just before he picked up an injury, I guess it was just good form that made him become a leading player. But yeah, he was a leading player. It seemed like he finally developed. Hopefully he can, he's recovered well from his injury. So if he just keeps on kicking on, putting in some good form as he has done all season long, he can actually, permanently become a leading player for most Premier League sides. And that way I won't have to invest in the centre-back position, at least in terms of the first team spots. Because Bailly and Lindelof would be both considered as leading players for most Premier League sides. We'll obviously need to invest in the backup options, because we don't want Jones and Smalling as the backup options. But it's like I mentioned, always improve the first team or the starting 11 first, and then you can improve your backup options, which is why we went for Sandro. Because one, we needed another. Ooh, that's a decent header from Martial. One, we needed another left back because we only had Shaw as the only option in the squad. And then the obvious thing was that Shaw wasn't a leading player, so we went for Sandro, and he's clearly, just like I mentioned, levels above Shaw. So it just shows you the difference, especially in the type of tactic we're using, of what a good fullback can do for you. So our next I was trying to score like Sandro. Next position that we're looking at, I think I mentioned before, is new right back spot. There's Danny Carvajal, but he's going to cost a chunk of money, but that's not the concern. He's going to cost about 50 mil. I think the board will be providing that next summer, probably not over the winter period. But my issue with him is that he's injury prone according to the scout reports. I think I'd rather avoid doing that. There's also Sergio Roberto, but I'd argue he's better as a box-to-box midfielder, so I'm not really going to play him as a right back. So I think I'd rather avoid that. He'll also cost us about 50 mil. So what we're looking at is probably Real Madrid's Sancho, who can play across all the back line, right back, centre back, left back. He's probably a bit of a more defensive kind of right back, but he has the attributes to play as a complete wing back. So we'll probably use him in that role and go for him. He'll also just cost about half his value. He's about 40 mil. But I think Madrid are willing to get rid of him for about 20 mil. So he's probably the most solid investment. But we need to have that money before I think we kind of do, because I've dealt well with the wages. That's another little update that we can give you, or I can give you. I don't know why I always say we. But we've finally given contracts to Herrera and Martial. Martial, obviously someone that we want to keep long term. Herrera is more about not losing him for free and selling him on for value, basically. And of course at the moment we need him, but we do have Scott McTominay, who should return from loan next season, and according to my scouts who are keeping an eye on his performances away while he's away, they say he's improved into a Premier League midfielder, so he should be a decent backup option. He was a championship player at the time when he was with us at the start of the season. We moved him on because we wanted him to develop, and hopefully my scout is right, and when he returns he is a Premier League player, and we can move on, Herrera or Fellaini or anyone else for that matter, and one of the backup options basically, and make a youngster with potential our backup option instead. We won't have to invest in that position. Alright, so Sandro, no options to take him off. Young has had 3 assists. Let's rest him. Lukaku, take him off for Sanchez, and change Sanchez to complete forward. And I think we're good to go as is. Love to rest Alexandra as well, because obviously he's tired and just returned from injury. Shouldn't really have started the game, but no options. I'm just hoping he doesn't pick up any injuries so that you know, we're safe with him. We need him desperately. He makes such a big difference to the side, and I want to hold on to him as much as possible. Anyways, one more substitution to make. Let's rest Fred, bring on Pereira. I'm not too pleased with how Pereira doesn't seem to really develop. 22 years old, I think, you know, according to Silvino is a goalkeeping coach, but he is our best judgment of ability, and quite often the rest of the staff agree with his opinions. So I've kind of made him my main man to rely on. But yeah, Pereira is just a decent player for most Premier League sides, and he only has potential to be good, which isn't necessarily good enough for our squad. We want leading players. So yeah, once we're done with improving the starting 11, and we're looking to improve the backup options, unless Pereira somehow magically becomes a leading player, he probably will be moved on as well. But at the moment, he has a place in the squad. And who knows, you know, sometimes players don't develop as much as you think they would, and others develop more than you didn't think they would, if that makes any sense. Martial's one of those players who probably hasn't developed as much as I thought he would. He seems to perform quite well, but he hasn't broken that barrier going from a good Premier League player to a leading Premier League player. And you know, we want him to make that jump. He seems to be performing well, so I'm not sure why he can't just break through. Probably just a couple more months, I guess. It's only November. There you go, he's grabbed his hat-trick. I think that is his hat-trick. Let's see what the commentator... Yep, that's a hat-trick. So, I mean, that's his Champions League football, grabbing a hat-trick. Hopefully this is the start of something special for him, basically. And the game seems to think he'd be a bit better as an inside forward. I also think so, to be fair. I think he's a tiny bit better as an inside forward than he is an advanced forward. And I think long term, when we're looking at playing Rashford and Martial together, it would probably be Martial on the left and Rashford as a striker, so that way we can play them together in that sense, because I don't think they can play as a duo in a striking role because they're a bit too similar to each other. So let's have a quick look at Martial. I just want to see what my coach thinks of him. See, he's still a good player, but he's obviously got plenty of potential and whatnot. And I'm hoping for him to fulfill that. I mean, look at that. That's as good as it gets. See if they consider him a wonder kid. No, not necessarily. Alright. But yeah, 5-0. Perfect way to get revenge, really. Viktoria have hardly had a sniff, and I'm hoping my players can keep the clean sheet as the clock ticks down. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I think we've done fairly well so far, considering the group of players we have. I mentioned there was a huge chunk of them who were just good players for most Premier League sides. They weren't amazing players, but they've been quite consistent. I don't think we've necessarily blown teams, at least in the Premier League, we haven't blown teams away consistently. Sometimes I have thought that we should be doing a bit better, and obviously the draws that we got weren't good. I think, you know, the bad results we've had, Perez just scored a beautiful goal, to be honest. I'm excited to see that in 3D. I was just talking about him as well. Celebrating by himself, that's kind of sad. Don't know, my players like him or something, or just not fussed because it's the 6th goal. Still though, that is a beautiful goal. Alright, Valencia. Matic is the one who gets the assist. Not much of an assist, probably the easiest assist, and that's a hell of a goal. Bounces isn't off the goalkeeper's back. Still a hell of a shot. So yeah, I mean, you know, all the poor results we've got, which is 2 draws and a loss, you know, not the end of the world. It's just November. I always say you can get away with winning the league as long as you don't draw and lose more than 5 times each, basically. Sometimes you need better results, sometimes you need even worse, and you can get away with it. But in general, I just feel like that's the maximum you can get, even in real life. Yeah, it's not like we've suffered that against top teams. We managed to beat some pretty good teams, to be honest. We beat Arsenal, we've beaten City, and we've beaten Chelsea. None of them convincingly other than City, but still we grabbed necessary points against our rivals. Now we need to try and do it against Liverpool and Tottenham as well, and we would have completed beating all 5 of our rivals. We need to try and do that obviously home and away, but just in general, if we did that, I think that would have been good. Whereas we've dropped points against Leicester, Crystal Palace, and I've forgotten now who we've lost to. We can actually have a look since the game's over. But that's just kind of the weird thing from my players, I suppose, and probably it's complacency. But I wasn't too pleased with those results, of course, because we would have been high up the table, basically. First place, obviously, no losses, no draws, but in a really good position. It has been a tough league so far, with Tottenham and City hardly giving us any breathing space. But yeah, I mean, if we lost or drew those games against top opposition, I can understand that a bit more than how we've performed so far. But 13 games, not even halfway through the season, so we should be okay. So there you go, loss against Southampton away from home. Looks like all our poor results have come away from home, which I guess makes it a bit more understandable. But still, I'm also unhappy with our record scorers. So we don't have Lukaku, Martial, Rashford or Sanchez in the top 10, I suppose. Just Lingard, who's a shadow striker. I guess the shadow striker is the main goal scorer in the squad, but really you expect more from your strikers. Just 6 goals from Lingard, with Harry Kane going crazy because 13 appearances, 16 goals. A goal a game is more than plenty from your striker. If you get a goal every other game from your striker, then you're more than happy, but Kane's doing much better. So there you go, we qualified for the first knockout round, so we don't have to show you the game against Valencia. Potentially also not the game against Liverpool, but I think the Liverpool one's just too tempting for me to miss out on. But it really depends on how the table looks by the time we reach Liverpool, basically, because Tottenham would arguably be the more important one in terms of the table. Liverpool in 5th, far away. We mentioned 7 points away, so not really the seasonal rivals, I suppose. It's more so Tottenham and City, and you could even argue Arsenal, who are just as relentless as us, basically. But yeah, so I think that's all for today's episode. If you did enjoy it, and of course please hit the like button and subscribe if you're new, and of course please don't forget to hit the notification button as well, and that'll be all. So thank you guys for watching.